Welcome back to Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Anime Review Episode number 12. Yep, that's what we're discussing the 70th episode of the series, Reunion. Yep, that's it of the episode. Now, before I get started with the review, I should note basically how far I read for the light novels. As of currently, I have read the 11th light novel for the series, which means currently I have one more physical book left to go. And here's the interesting though. Book 13 comes out not this coming week, but next week. And I think after that, next book does come out for at least for about 3 months. Yeah, book 14 is coming out, I think, until I think it's February, I think it is. Excuse me. Now, this episode does that from chapter 2, 4, and 5. Is there a cut to these one? Let's see. For 2, I think they cut like a couple small bits of dialogue. Like one small scene for that one. 4 was kind of the same thing too, pretty accurate. They did cut a couple pieces of dialogue in this one, but 5 got the worst cuts out of the entire of all 3 chapters for this episode. If it was over chapter 5, they cut out pretty much almost the entire chapter, where they only adapted the last like couple pages of the chapter. I'm like, really? That's what they did? Okay. So we start off basically with. So we start with Paul's perspective, where this is just after the teleportation incident from Curve 1, have back in episode 8, where it explains how he and Norman survived, where they were together. Of course, Norman was his arms, and he was clean shaven at that point. And wearing a completely different attire, well, slightly different attire than you would see currently. He was wearing a cloak. And where his daughter's asking him where they are. Of course, she's the first one to say it's not him. And they're basically on the grassy field. This actually goes from the opening page of chapter 2. And I gotta say, it is done very well that they actually recreated this whole entire opening scene. And mostly after that, it's a lot of montaging, but they keep a lot of good bits for the chapter, which I do appreciate that. So he keeps the team together. He goes to the place where their home was, where it's been virtually been destroyed. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, then we come back to present day, where it's like, or apparently he's still in the bar from the last episode, like right after he just had a fight with his son Rudius. And then of course then we have like he meets up with Goose, who actually Rudius met a couple episodes back, where he talks to him for a bit. Now, their conversation is pretty accurate to how it's presented in the manga in the actual light novel, except they cut the bit out of how Goose knew Rudius. Yes, the whole bit of basically like what happened over the course of the previous episodes for these couple. For some reason, they said they cut it for some reason. I'm not really sure why. My guess is we probably didn't need a recap of something we've already seen before in the series, because we kind of got a recap of that just with the very last episode. That's probably because of basically we already went to Discover 4, so that's simply where it comes in. And then we cut to like, of course, we see him frequently where he decides to like pat his daughter on the head, and he says, "If I'm gonna be Rudy, I should probably shave." So he proceeds to shave. And next comes basically from the start of chapter, I think it's like later on the chapter. Next bit is completely accurate to the actual book itself, where he arrives at the bar, clean shaven, and it's Eris who walks to him and says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm Paul Garrett. Rudy is his father." And basically, like, I know that. And of course, this whole bit is, I love the fact that they kept this complete accurate. So he tries to find basically payback for last episode, which is the day prior, and then he sits down and talks to Rudius for a while. And I gotta say, this conversation is very well handled. I think that the studio did a fantastic job of keeping a lot of the dialogue in, which this is something though, as like last episode when they kept like a lot of stuff out, this one they kept a lot in. Like, wow, who would have thought an anime kept like a lot in for the action book? So, and then of course they make up, and like after having a long conversation, they basically like that Rudy tells his father, "Get down on your knees." So I give him a hug and stretch your arms out. And of course they hug and they cry, and they pretty much make up with each other. And then we cut to them in the room, which is basically, I think, for the start of chapter 5, where they're basically in Rudius's room, well, his team's room anyways, where they chat for a bit. Moses put they keep a lot of dialogue in this one. The only thing they cut here is like the stuff where the money came from, and there's a little bit they cut like a minor bit of dialogue here, where they explain like, well, the fact that you to go talk about traveling, like I had somebody saying up, and they also cut the little shocking bit of him talking about like the money he's given, where it says it's equivalent to 20 king gold, 20 king, 20 gold coins. And he's like, oh, this is like 1 million yen. He's like, yen. Yeah, they cut that bit out because my guess is they probably didn't need that person. They probably need to progress the story a little bit. That's probably the reason why they had that cut there. So, sorry about this. So, excuse me. So they come back, and so basically after chatting for a bit, Eris and Roger come back, and Eris has got a black eye. Yeah, this is probably something that's from the actual interlude that comes right after the chapter 5 that was adapted, that was not adapted yet. That's probably maybe next episode. So, they mentioned they had made up, and the fact they give some money and a letter. The letter's contents are not disclosed here, and they're probably going to disclose it next episode. So they mentioned they call another strategy meeting, which is basically complete elaboration of the strategy meeting because they don't have the strategy meeting manga in the actual like light novel itself. So they put this in here just to give an explanation of why they don't want to leave, and of course they're going to leave the very next day, and they do. And they get some horses. By the way, the horse thing they actually show in the actual like flashback with montage. In the episode, he doesn't explain where he got the horse from. In the book, basically, it says he got that from the guild. My guess is from the Avengers Guild. So, on that piece of dialogue, they cut because of basically time constraints to try and move the story along forward. And so they have there was a bit with Rudius and Norn happening before the end of the episode where they kind of met each other again, and where she does not want to talk to him at all. And this, of course, this is from a big chunk of chapter 5 that was cut. Like it felt like they cut almost like a good chunk of the chapter. Like they cut the fact that Rudius was going to have dinner with his father. He was going to reunite with his sister before the end of the episode. That bit was cut. This scene, I don't really get why it was cut for. It's just kind of weird. Unlike the other cuts, probably progress the story. This felt completely unnecessary to cut almost the entire freaking chapter out. So, they end the episode with Rudius' team on horses, and they go out to basically the next continent, the central continent, basically the Millis continent. And we have the episode end with, well, of course, he of course tried to say goodbye to his sister. She didn't want to. And then Rujar comes up and just basically passes the head. Now, in the book itself, he actually had met him off screen. So that's the reason why she's not uncomfortable around Rajar. So they say goodbye and they go off to the very next location they're going to go, which is Central Continent. And, well, Paul picks up the horn, and of course they proceed to walk off to wherever they're going to go. And that's the episode. Gotta say, really good episode. And just love the fact that they kept a lot of the good bits in here. I would say the only thing I didn't like about this episode was cutting out an entire scene. Yeah, because most of the cuts here were just minor bits of dialogue to progress it, but cutting an entire scene out was kind of a bit unnecessary. But they probably did because of time constraint. That's my personal guess. So, it looks like, though, based upon how much was adapted for this very episode, it looks like, though, that possibly next week's episode is going to finish up in the book itself. Yes. You're probably thinking, what else is left to go? Because they got to pretty much chapter 5. Well, there's technically 2 chapters, 2 interludes, and 2 extra chapters. In the case of the extra chapters, I don't know if they're going to adapt these or not. I have no idea. I think they're going to adapt chapter 6, 7, no problem. Yeah, that's like much of an issue. The interlude, they may adapt that. It just depends. Maybe it's a spicy thing. That's possible to say at least. Yeah, but who knows? We'll find out next week. But I do think that possibly next week we're going to finish adapting this arc. Well, this book anyways. Yeah, because They only started adapting this one, like, let's see. I think it was just last episode they started adapting book 5. Yeah, it was just last episode, and here we are. We're already almost done with this book, like, adaptation wise. And it looks like, though, that after about, let's see, I'd say about 3 episodes, this is actually quite quick for what the series is going to do. So my guess is book 6 might be slightly longer because they're going to be definitely a lot more material. They're probably going through this book pretty quickly because, well, there's probably going to be a lot of stuff happening for the very next book because it's the conclusion of the boyhood stuff. Yes. So my guess is the reason why they're speeding along the adaptation of book 5, and this is just my personal theory, because book 6 is quite long. It's got a lot of chapters. They probably give a lot of screen time, and they're probably gonna have it to where, like, from 19 to 23, this probably gonna kick up the entirety of this arc. So we're gonna give this one a jump start, basically. Possibly, I don't think with next week's episode. My guess is 2 weeks from now is when they're going to start adapting book 6, and it'll take up roughly the last 5 episodes of the season. Yep. So yeah, not much to say about it. It's a good episode. So next video is going to be a review of newest episode One Piece. Okay, next video. Bye.